Welcome back, everyone. We are going to finish up our section on ExpressRoute by covering a conceptual overview of several different troubleshooting methods you should be familiar with when troubleshooting your ExpressRoute circuit. In this lesson, we'll start off with a big picture overview of the different network zones that may need troubleshooting when something isn't working simply the way that you want it to. Then we'll go through a number of troubleshooting steps when troubleshooting zero connectivity, and also when troubleshooting when a connection is working, but the network performance is not as you expect it to be. Jumping on into it, when working with a full end-to-end ExpressRoute solution, there's really quite a bit of stuff to troubleshoot if something goes wrong. For example, our on-premises network may not be configured correctly, which could result in no connectivity. Our service provider network may not be correctly configured or correctly paired up with our Azure environment. The one exception is if we are using the direct connectivity model. And there could be a misconfiguration in our Azure network configuration, which includes both the virtual network configuration and the peering setup as well. Now, for this lesson and the scope of the exam, we're not going to go really deep into the customer network troubleshooting, but we are going to take a look at a few troubleshooting steps with the provider network and Azure network zones that we need to be aware of. First, let's take a look at a few troubleshooting steps to be aware of when troubleshooting zero connectivity. That is, our circuit is up and working, or so we think, but we do not have an actual connection. First troubleshooting step is to verify that our circuit is actually up and correctly provisioned. In our previous demonstration, we got confirmation in our ExpressRoute circuit interface whether or not our circuit was actually provisioned with the service provider. A non-provisioned circuit will surprisingly not work. Next troubleshooting step is to confirm that your Azure private peering configuration is correct. As we also learned, the Azure private peering, and for the most part the Microsoft 365 peering, establishes the BGP peering connection between Azure or Microsoft services and your on-premises network. If this is not correctly configured, both sites cannot correctly detect and exchange routes from each other, and that peering simply will not be working as expected. The next two troubleshooting methods use a built-in diagnose function in the different Azure services, the first of which is testing private peering connectivity built into our ExpressRoute interface. In our ExpressRoute circuit interface, there is a diagnose function that goes through a number of troubleshooting detection in steps to provide feedback if your circuit simply isn't set up correctly or if there are some other outages taking place. And finally, our last zero connectivity troubleshooting step is to verify on the ExpressRoute network gateway end that network gateway is indeed available. Similar to our ExpressRoute circuit troubleshooting steps, there is a diagnose function built into the network gateway as well, which can provide a lot of feedback on the availability of your network gateway. Fun fact, when I was putting this lesson together with screenshots and using the diagnose function in my own demo environment, I actually got feedback that my own network gateway was temporarily unavailable, which could explain why it wasn't connecting when I was trying to do so. So that diagnose function definitely does come in handy. Next, I want to finish up this lesson with some recommendations on how to troubleshoot network performance. In this scenario, our ExpressRoute circuit is correctly up and running, however, the network performance is not what we expect it to be. To troubleshoot network performance issues, we can start by using typical network troubleshooting tools apart from Azure, such as using the ping, traceroute functions, and also different applications such as iPerf. However, to get into more Azure-specific solutions, we have a couple options as well. One of those is an open source product called the Azure Connectivity Toolkit, or Azure CT for short, which is actually a PowerShell module. In other words, it runs entirely within PowerShell that can perform a variety of network diagnostics between your on-premises network and the Azure network that you are connecting to. And this PowerShell module can handle duties of measuring performance and also general availability as well. And the last Azure-specific performance monitoring recommendation is, once again, going back to Network Watcher, specifically using the connection monitor feature built into the Network Watcher service, which is able to run ongoing monitoring and diagnostics of your network performance between two different locations, which can give you insight and metrics on how your network is running. With that, that's going to conclude this quick conceptual overview of a variety of ExpressRoute troubleshooting methods you should be aware of. Let's go ahead and review our key takeaways before we move on. We started with recommendations of troubleshooting zero connectivity within an ExpressRoute circuit you need to be familiar with, which includes verifying the circuit state, in other words, whether or not it is actually provisioned, checking your private peering configuration, and then using the Diagnose tool built into both the ExpressRoute circuit interface and our ExpressRoute network gateway interface as well. We also covered troubleshooting steps for troubleshooting network performance. In other words, the performance isn't where we expect it to be, which includes traditional troubleshooting tools, a PowerShell specific tool called Azure Connectivity Toolkit, and going back once again to Network Watcher using the connection monitor feature built into that service. That's going to go ahead and wrap up this lesson. Let's go ahead and move on to the next one.